Good evening. Welcome to another episode of Aging with Attitude. My name is Phil Koch. I'll be your host this evening. You're watching Channel 21, servicing the greater Charlotte metro market. Tonight we have Roger Ayscue with the Hyatt Gun Shop. Welcome, Roger.
Thanks for having me, Phil.
Sure, it's good to have you. And tonight we're going to talk a little bit about seniors and the guns that could help them and how it relates to them. Tell us more about why you're here and what we're going to talk about.
Yes, sir. I thought that a good topic would be how can you avoid being a victim? Before you arm yourself, one of the great things about it is that by minor changes to lifestyle, you can actually prevent the likelihood of being victimized. Unfortunately, in society, we tend to have an opinion of some of our seniors is that they're an easy target. Again, unfortunately, as we age, our mental and our physical capabilities diminish along with that increased age. And so seniors are more and more finding themselves being the victims of crime.
Right.
So what I wanted to talk a little bit about with your audience is how to reduce the likelihood that you would become a victim.
Perfect. And Hyatt Gun Shop is one of the stores here in the Charlotte market that sells arms throughout the region. And where is it located?
We're located at 3332 Wilkinson Boulevard,
Okay.
right up from the new Walmart shopping center. Been in the same location since 1959. We're now in our third generation of Hyatt running it. It is the traditional family-owned small business.
Right.
One thing that separates Hyatt Gun Shop from a lot of the other firearms retailers in the area is the guys that are working with you when you come in are more than just a salesman or more than a clerk.
Right.
Most of our counter sales personnel are NRA instructors, former police officers, target shooters. There is some qualification other than knowing how to sell somebody something.
Right, and that's important. That's very important.
Well, what we do, it is a dangerous thing to have. A firearm has the capability of hurting yourself or someone else.
Yeah.
And so Mr. Hyatt felt several years ago that it was important to have his staff trained to not only be able to sell you a gun, but to be able to show you how to use it and to be able to teach you how to do so safely.
Yeah, safely is a key word.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay, so you want to talk some about how seniors and elders are becoming more attractive to criminals.
That's a fact.
Yeah.
One of the things that I was taught in the military and that is now translating into a lot of the training that civilians are taking is called situational awareness. Mm-hmm. And that is where you see the same surroundings every day, but key in on something that isn't quite right.
Yeah.
There's something has been moved. There's a window going into your house that you know was closed, but now when you pull up in the driveway, it's open. Remember, if you trust your instincts, about half the time or more, you're going to be right.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I would tell, and I teach a class called Personal Protection in the Home. One of the things that I tell my students is if it's raining and it's around the holidays, even though you can park on the lower level of the deck,
right,
it might not be a good place to park because that gives a whole lot of shadow area in the dark for a bad guy to hide, grab your purse or grab your car keys.
Right.
So by making minor adjustments to some of the routines that we have in life, we can actually minimize the possibility that we will become victims.
Yeah. Not just the victims for seniors that are watching our show, but also for children that are caregivers or just plain caregivers and friends of seniors. So,
yes, sir.
Yeah. Tell us how other things that could help that you might suggest.
Okay. I would always have on me or near me a cell phone.
Okay.
Because it's not hard in a home invasion situation for the bad guy to cut the line going into your house, and there your telephone's out and access to 911.
Right.
But if you have a cell phone and you have it near you, You hit 911, you don't even have to say anything. As long as that line is open, they're going to be recording it, they're going to be listening. So hit 911, get the operator online. This is what's going on, this is who I am, this is what I'm wearing.
Right.
And the reason you tell them what you're wearing is it will go out to the police officers and first responders that the person wearing the brown tweed jacket is the one making the call.
Right.
So always have that with you.
And don't hang up, right? Because
No.
they can GPS and track you if the phone's on.
That's correct.
Yeah.
So as long as you have that phone going, it can be a tracking system for the good guys to
Right.
come in and try and help you.
Yeah, yeah.
Another thing, never, ever leave your house keys with someone that's doing a repair on your automobile. Always separate your house keys. The reason for that, you just gave a complete stranger total access to your home. You have to give them your driver's license because they filled the paperwork out for the car. So you're telling them, this is where I live.
Right.
Here's the key to the house. And half the time they want to know, well, what time is convenient for us to call you?
Yeah.
So you're now telling, this is where I live, here's the key to my house, and this is when I'm not going to be home.
Right.
So you might want to make sure that you never give them all three things.
Right.
And you can call me anytime. Why? Use your cell phone number to give out and not your home phone. So you can call me anytime. That doesn't give them a clear indication of when you're not going to be there.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's an important thing. You know, you hear a lot of people who say, well, I'm going to be home at these hours. Well, that's not always a good thing to give that information out.
No, sir. It
Yeah.
very rarely is a good thing to give out.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, what about if somebody has a gun in the house now or planning to get a gun or a weapon of any kind that could be harmful to somebody, you know, that would pick it up by accident? Where should they store that weapon in a home environment? Where do you suggest, Hyatt suggest?
All right. The first thing that I would tell you is get a lockbox or a safe.
Okay.
For a handgun, just like this one,
Sure.
you can pick up a small lockbox that will mount to a nightstand or mount under the bed on the floor that will fit this in. You can get that lockbox for somewhere around $100 or $150 for a nice one. Gives you instant access, but it keeps the kids away. And I think that that's the key. North Carolina and the federal government both have laws in place that as a gun owner, you are responsible for storing your gun and ammunition in a manner that a reasonable person would believe a child or a minor can't get access to it. So we suggest that you use a lockbox or a safe. If you don't have children in the home and you're never going to have children in the home, then the lock that the gun comes with is sufficient to keep that firearm from being utilized, and it falls within the spirit of the law. Also, an important thing for your viewers to remember is that with the purchase of every handgun, new or used, the retailer has to give you a lock.
Okay.
Now, most firearms manufacturers, these are both Ruger's, and Ruger's really good about it, most firearms manufacturers will include a gun lock in the box with the gun. But if you're buying a used gun, say at a pawn shop or at one of our competitors, make sure that they give you a lock.
And where does the lock go? Forgive me, I'm not a gun person myself.
Okay.
It goes in near the trigger itself?
Well, on this revolver, there are two places that you can lock. One, you could put a lock on the trigger itself.
Okay.
Or you open the cylinder and you run a cable lock through the cylinder. You can also run a cable lock through the receiver bridge.
Almost like a mini bicycle lock that runs through the cylinder.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
I recommend always that you run it through the cylinder
Okay.
or through the receiver bridge. On the automatic, the best place to lock the gun is down the magazine well.
Okay.
You never want to run a lock down your barrel because it has the capability of scratching the barrel on the inside. The other thing some guns are shipped with trigger locks. The old-fashioned and what we think of as being gun locks that fit right in here. The problem with those is with the new generations of polymer guns, all you have to do is cut through the trigger guard and that lock pops right off.
Oh, really?
So if someone's going to steal your gun so that they can use it in a bad way, it doesn't matter to them if they damage it. They just cut the trigger lock or trigger guard off, pull that trigger lock out, and now they have a functioning firearm. Whereas if you run the cable through the action and through the receiver and magazine well, then that can't happen.
Now, do you suggest, and this is just a question because I'm learning, that I've heard some people say, well, keep your ammunition separate from where you store the gun itself, or if you have a lock on the gun, is that sufficient, or what do you suggest?
The suggestion that I would give is if you have more than one gun in the home, that you separate the ammunition from the gun. Keep the ammunition locked up and also keep the gun locked up, but not necessarily together. But if you only have one gun, or it's the gun that you're using for home security, the gun isn't going to do you any good if you don't have ammunition for it.
Yeah.
So that's where that lockbox comes in.
Yeah.
You can keep the ammunition and the gun locked in that lockbox, and then for double security, you could keep the trigger lock or the gun lock on the gun. Some of the manufacturers now are issuing keys that will actually disable the firearm. So you take one key, turn it in, and it turns the gun off, basically.
Really?
Yes, sir.
Wow. Now, what is the waiting period now if Joe Smith wants to go out and buy a gun for self-protection or for sporting reasons or hunting? What is the current waiting period for those viewers that are not aware?
All right, North Carolina doesn't have a waiting period. Some states call it a cooling off period.
Okay.
And what that's for is to prevent you from going and buying a gun in the heat of the moment because there's some crime of passion that you really want to commit. What we do is we fall under, and every state in the union does, the Brady law, which if your state requirement was more strenuous than Brady, then you fell with North Carolina state law. And our state law has for years been stronger than the Brady law.
Okay.
For a shotgun or a rifle, you can walk into our gun store and walk out with that gun. But what we use is a telephonic check to the FBI, to their National Instant Check System, or NICS. That on a great day takes about 10 minutes. You call NICS, give pertinent information about the purchaser, and they'll come back and give you an approval or disapproval code. Now, you may get delayed on that, and that could be anything from someone with a name like yours that has a record, or the computer system at the call center's down. So just because you get delayed on an NICS check doesn't mean that there's something wrong. It just means that there's something that first evaluator can't access in your system.
Okay.
Now, North Carolina, since time immemorial, has had a purchase permit program in place for handguns.
Yeah.
If you want to purchase a handgun in the state of North Carolina, you have to have a permit issued by the sheriff in your county of residence. Now, you can use that permit anywhere in the state, but it has to be issued by the sheriff where you live. In Mecklenburg County right now, that's Chip Bailey. So Sheriff Bailey has to issue you a permit to buy a handgun if you're a Mecklenburg County resident. That permit costs about $5, and it takes a couple of weeks to get.
Okay.
So is issued by the chief law enforcement officer for this county, it exceeded the standard for Brady. Now, a few years ago, well, I'd say a few, but it's been close to 20, North Carolina enacted a concealed handgun permit. It's different than some other states that are concealed weapons permits. North Carolina legislators looked at what do we want people to be able to carry if they're going to carry a weapon.
Right.
And they specifically listed it as a concealed handgun permit. That way you can't carry a short-barreled shotgun under your coat.
Right.
You have to carry a handgun, which is, by North Carolina law, is either one of these firearms would fall into that. It's a firearm that is designed to be used with one hand. So one of those long pistols with a wooden grip in the front wouldn't qualify for that because it's not designed for it.
Right.
And funny thing about that is you can't carry anything else, even a non-lethal, on that permit. So you can't carry a taser or a stun gun concealed in North Carolina. So sometimes it's a little bit interesting, some of the ways that the laws are written, because you would think that you'd be able to carry a stun gun concealed easier than you could a firearm, but that's not the case.
So you can't get a concealed weapon permit for a taser?
No, sir.
Really?
No, sir. And there's no provision in the law to allow that.
Wow. Huh.
And I don't know why,
Yeah.
but just that's how it's written.
Do you need a permit for a taser?
No, sir, you don't need a permit to buy a taser or a stun gun. And understand that there's a difference between the two.
Okay.
What we see in the movies, the little boxes that have a wrist strap and you hit the button and it arcs some artificial lightning, those are stun guns. They have one drawback in that you must be in physical contact with your assailant to use it. But most of them will average about 1.5 million volts. So
Wow.
You don't stay in contact with your assailant very long if you hit them with one. A taser actually shoots a pair of prongs that has a wire guided to it that you hit the button on the taser and you can continue to hit that button until they're no longer a threat.
Wow.
The probes that it shoots out have prongs on them that kind of resemble fish hooks, and you really should go and have those professionally removed at the hospital or the doctor's office if you get hit with one.
I've always wondered, so that's a stun gun, right? The prongs that shoot out?
No, sir, that's a taser.
Sorry. So you shoot somebody with a taser, and just out of curiosity, let's say they're barefooted and they're in water, and it misses them and it goes into the water. Does the electrical jolt that they get the same if they're standing in a body of water than if they actually got physically hit?
I don't know, but I don't think I'd want to try it either. One of the things I had to do to certify to carry one is you have to be hit with one, and I've been tasered. It's no fun.
Yeah. No, I don't think I'd want to try that. Nor do we recommend anybody go through that process unless they wish to buy one. So, but that's out there to buy.
Yes, sir.
And you're saying a permit is not necessary?
No, sir. Taser International does they do a real good job of vetting the people that buy their product.
Yeah.
You have to call Taser to get an activation code.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't walk in and buy a Taser and then go shoot somebody with it.
Okay, so if you had a wish to acquire a handgun, the very first thing you would want to do is go get a permit from the particular sheriff of the county that you reside in first.
Yes. First decide what kind of gun you want to use.
Okay.
I have in front of me small guns because we talk about what would we want to carry.
Right.
Sometimes carrying that 5-inch military pistol just isn't an option.
Yeah.
But at the same time, a small revolver or small handgun may not be exactly what you want in your house either.
Right.
What I've found in teaching and studies that I've done, the best thing to use in your house is a shotgun. And I'll show you why. This is a Remington Model 870 20 gauge pump shotgun.
Okay.
This gun does one thing that nothing else in the world does, and that is the gun itself is a deterrent.
Right.
If it's 2 o'clock in the morning and you're doing something you're not supposed to be doing, this sound says, "Get out of my house," in every known language.
Yes, it does.
This is a 20 gauge. It's a smaller than a 12 gauge, has about half the kick of what you would expect a normal hunting shotgun would have. And it's perfectly suited for a smaller statured individual, someone that's thin, a senior citizen. This would be a nice thing to have in the house. You don't have to get up, put a magazine in, take a safety off, and aim, and then put one bullet in an area. what I recommend that you use is a shotgun, and you want to use something like a squirrel round, because when the shot comes out, it patterns and spreads out. So it's an area fire firearm rather than
You don't have to be a
point
perfect
hit.
shot.
That's right.
Right. It covers a broad range. Okay.
That's right. Even easier to use,
Yeah.
also in a 20 gauge. This is a modern take on Granny's old double-barreled shotgun. It has a barrel that's the legal length, and underneath it, it's got an attachment rail. And what I've got on it is a 200 lumen flashlight. So look at that sign right there.
Right.
So if somebody's in your house and you hit them with that spotlight, chances are you're not going to have to shoot.
Right.
But if that were the case, this breaks open, 2 shells, close it, pull the trigger.
Right.
Some of the non-lethals that are out there are pepper spray. You can use your keys. A nice aluminum. This happens to be what's called a Surefire Fury.
Yeah.
It has a 500 lumen light.
Right.
And one of the things about the human eye, once it's accustomed to the dark, if you put that much light towards it, it'll take 15 to 20 minutes for that individual's night vision to return. So they're going to see spots in front of their eyes for about 15 minutes. And that gives you all the time that you need to get away.
To get away. Yeah. So if Mrs. Smith, who's 90 years old, is leaving the grocery store and it's dark out, and she has to have something to protect herself, or she feels comfortable with,
Yep.
outside of a handgun, what would you suggest? And she's, yeah.
The first thing that I would suggest is that she either get a small baton or a flashlight like this,
Right.
that's made out of a high impact material, a polymer or an aluminum.
Okay.
The reason for that is this becomes a strike weapon. You have this, you've got your keys hanging off of it. You can blind the individual, take them by surprise, or you can get a nice pepper spray or pepper gel attached to the key ring.
Really?
Yes, sir.
Now, going back to the gun a second. So, if Mrs. Smith, who's never fired a firearm in her life, or very rarely, says, I'd like to get maybe a gun to protect myself, or she hasn't fired it in years and it's stuck in a safe somewhere, and says, I want to get more active with it for whatever reason, for protection or for sporting reasons, do you recommend that they then go through a class to teach them more about shooting small firearms?
Without a doubt. Phil, that's probably, aside from deciding to own a gun, the most responsible thing that you can do as a gun owner is to take some training with that gun.
Okay.
But a lot of people don't know, where do I go, or what should I take? And I jokingly say that's what you have guys like me for.
Right.
Any of the viewers can call me at Hyatt Gun Shop. My name is
Okay.
Roger Ayscue. You can call me anytime that we're open, and I can direct you to some training that will fit your needs and pretty much fit your budget.
Right.
Instructors are, they're paid according to their own fee schedule. So we have instructors that work with us. We have instructors that work for us.
Right.
We teach classes, at least one type of class every week, 52 weeks a year.
Huh.
So the training is out there, and we can help you find what you need to become a more responsible and a proficient gun owner.
And what's a typical length of a class like that? And then at the end of the class or somewhere during the class, can they then say, here's a couple guns that you can shoot to get a feel for which type of gun that you feel comfortable with?
Yes, sir. Those classes are available.
Yeah.
Generally, we use the National Rifle Association's approved classes because they're standardized nationwide.
Yeah.
A minimum class is 4.5 hours, and you familiarize with the gun.
Okay.
North Carolina's concealed carry class is 8 hours, mandated by law, and you're required to qualify with a handgun. Some of the places that we will recommend that you take training that they have partnered with us, they also have firearms that you can go in and rent.
Okay.
So you may not know whether you want a revolver, which is the easiest gun to use,
Yeah.
or you want an automatic, which has a higher capacity.
Right.
Going into places like Elite Training in Indian Trail, which is one of our partner businesses, you can go in and talk to Mark or Lynn Elmo, they're the owners,
Right.
and say, I'm not sure whether I want a revolver or an automatic. Rogers Hyatt has sent me down here. And what they'll do is they'll let you shoot both. That way you can determine which one you like.
What do you feel comfortable with? Right.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That's the most important thing, is that you are comfortable and proficient with that firearm.
Okay.
If you aren't, then the gun doesn't do you any good, and doesn't do anybody else any good either.
Let me ask you, so I'm an Antique Roadshow fan, and I'm sure some of the viewers watching tonight are too, that type of show. So let's say I have an old gun in my house,
Yes, sir.
stuck in a safe or up in the attic somewhere, or some of the viewers have. Can they go to a shop such as yours and get it appraised?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
We do that every day. I've got 2 master appraisers on staff. All you have to do is bring that gun in, and we will look at it, we'll appraise it for you, and I have 9 gunsmiths. So at Hyatt's, we can take you from evaluating your great-grandfather's old pistol, whether it's safe or not, here's the ammunition that you need with it, all the way through, okay, the pistol's safe for use, let's teach you how to, or, this is an antique, they don't make the ammunition anymore, but if this is what you're comfortable with, let me find something for you that's new manufactured that you can work with.
Wow, that's great. Because I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that have guns that if they don't want to get trained to use themselves, they might be interested in selling and getting a little bit extra cash. There's certainly money out there needed.
Yes, sir. We do that.
You can do that as well.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, that's
Yeah.
great. Well, Roger, I want to thank you very, very much for coming today and talking to us about tips to help everybody with regards to handguns and weapons, both from Hyatt Gun Shop and all other firearm salespeople in the Charlotte market. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me, Phil.
You're welcome. Great resource. Again, Phil Koch, Aging with Attitude. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next week.